Welcome to The Explainer. Okay, let's just dive right into this, because today we're looking at a story that completely reframes how we think about the limits we place on our own potential. It's the story of a man named Arun, who is bound by this really strange, lifelong burden. I want you to picture this. Imagine carrying a heavy, intricately carved wooden box with you literally everywhere you go, to work, on every single trip, through every hardship of your life. Well, that is exactly what Arun did.
And we're not just talking about doing this for a week or a month or even a year. He did this for 30 years. Just let the sheer weight of that time sink in for a second. 3 decades of dragging a heavy physical object through every journey and every milestone of his existence. 30 years of dedicating physical and mental energy to this single, constant companion. As you can imagine, this made Arun quite the spectacle. People would constantly stop him, point to his burden, and ask the obvious question, right? What's inside the box? But what's really fascinating about Arun's situation is his response, because his answer was always the exact same. He would simply shrug and say, "I don't know." He'd follow it up by explaining that he was explicitly told never, ever to open it.
So the crucial point here is understanding how this whole thing even started. It was this rapid succession of events that just anchored the box to Arun's life before he could even process it. At age 18, his grandfather hands him this massive, old wooden box. The only verbal instruction he gets is, "This box is important. Keep it safe." And then, tragically and very abruptly, his grandfather passes away. Before Arun can ask a single question about what's inside, the door closes.
So Arun was left entirely in the dark. There was no key given to him, there was no instruction manual, no hidden compartment, absolutely no verbal explanation. There was only this vague little note attached to the heavy wood, which just read, "Open only when you are ready." Now, as an 18-year-old grieving the sudden loss of his grandfather, Arun had no clue what those words actually meant. But out of deep respect for his grandfather's dying wishes, he complied. He decided he simply wasn't ready, and so the carrying began.
Over the years, something kind of fascinating and honestly a bit tragic happened. His life became completely shaped by a box. The physical object stopped being just a piece of wood that Arun carried around. It merged completely with his identity. It dictated his choices, his movements, his entire mindset. He stopped being just Arun. He became the man with the box.
And, this created a genuine conflict, because Arun had vibrant desires. He wanted to move to a new city. He wanted to travel the world. He wanted to seize new opportunities as they popped up. But these dreams constantly collided with the box's limitations. When he thought of moving, he was terrified of damaging the box. When he dreamed of traveling, he realized it was just too hard to physically carry on long journeys. When opportunities arose, that heavy, constant burden made him second-guess everything. The box was literally anchoring him in place, restricting the exact life he actually wanted to live.
What brilliantly illustrates the irony of this whole situation is what everyone else thought. While Arun was sacrificing his own dreams to protect this heavy block of wood, onlookers were projecting immense, totally unverified value onto it. People whispered that it had to contain hidden treasure. Others swore it held deep, powerful family secrets. Some were absolutely convinced it was filled to the brim with gold. Arun himself? He never knew. He was shaping his entire existence around guarding something he had never actually examined.
But every story of transformation requires a catalyst, right? And for Arun, that catalyst was the appearance of a complete stranger. One evening, while Arun was resting on a journey, just feeling the sheer, exhausting weight of his load, a weary old traveler sat down right next to him. The traveler noticed the worn-out, heavy box and, like literally everyone else, asked Arun what was inside. Arun gave his usual practiced answer. "I don't know."
But the traveler didn't just accept that answer. Instead, he smiled, looked at Arun, and asked this incredibly piercing question. "And how do you know it's worth carrying?" Arun just sat there in total silence. In 3 decades, no one had ever asked him that. They always asked what was inside, sure, but they never challenged the actual act of carrying it. This was the very first time Arun's blind compliance was truly challenged.
And the traveler didn't stop there. He shared this profound piece of wisdom, pointing out that humanity is full of people carrying boxes, only most of them are invisible. We carry old fears. We lug around other people's expectations. We hoist up beliefs we never ever bothered to question. The traveler explained that we protect these unseen burdens and we organize our entire lives around them, but very few of us ever stop to check if they're actually worth their weight. That night, the traveler's words just echoed in Arun's mind. He couldn't shake them. So, for the very first time in 30 years, Arun decided to look closely at the box. Not just carry it, not just blindly protect it, but truly examine it.
Beneath 3 decades of accumulated dust, dirt, and wear, he started to inspect the wood, running his hands over the edges he had guarded for a lifetime. And as he wiped away the dust from the front clasp, he noticed something incredibly strange. Something absolutely impossible. There was no lock. Think about the devastating reality of that for just a moment. It wasn't that the lock had broken. It wasn't that the key was missing. There never had been a lock. For 30 years, Arun completely believed he was locked out of this mystery, when in reality, the barrier was entirely in his own mind.
With trembling hands, his heart probably racing out of his chest, Arun reached out and slowly lifted the lid. And inside, there was absolutely no gold, no hidden family jewels, no ancient treasure. Lying right at the bottom of this massive, heavy wooden box was only a simple, folded piece of paper. He reached in, unfolded the paper, and read his grandfather's true, final message. The moment you realize you can put this box down, you are ready. Wow! Let the profound gravity of those words just hang in the air for a second. His grandfather wasn't giving him a physical treasure. He was giving him a lifelong lesson about autonomy and the burdens we actually choose to bear. Arun just sat there in stunned silence. It was 30 years of an unanswered question. 30 years of lugging around a heavy burden that was never even locked. 30 years of letting a vague mandate and his own unquestioned assumptions dictate every single choice he made in his existence. The tragedy wasn't just the physical weight. It was the life he left unlived because of a total illusion.
Now, what's truly interesting about this story is how it reflects on us. It's time to pivot and ask you directly, how many invisible boxes are you carrying right now? Because let's be real, this isn't just a parable about a guy with a wooden box. It's a psychological audit for all of us.
Let's look at the real-world, everyday equivalents of Arun's box that we all drag around. These are your unseen burdens. The fear of failure that stops you from taking that new job. The deeply ingrained belief that you just aren't good enough. The exhausting effort of following someone else's path instead of your own. The heavy guilt of past mistakes, or even just the opinions of people who honestly don't even think about you anymore. Like Arun, we spend years carrying these beliefs that we never actively chose. And the most tragic part? We carry them for so long, we forget we even have them strapped to our backs.
But Arun's story doesn't end in despair. It ends in liberation. The very next morning, Arun made a choice. He left the wooden box behind, and he stepped forward to continue his journey. For the first time in decades, he felt remarkably lighter. His life hadn't magically changed overnight, but his reality had shifted simply because he finally questioned the weight he was carrying and realized he had the power to just put it down.
So before you take another step forward in your own life, I want you to deeply examine this question. What are you carrying that you no longer need? Think about your routines, your anxieties, your deeply held limits. Remember that sometimes the door holding you back, the box weighing you down, well, it was never actually locked in the first place. It was never meant to be carried forever. I want to leave you with this final, incredibly powerful thought from our source material today. The heaviest burdens are often the ones we never question. Take some time today to question your burdens. Find your unlocked boxes and give yourself permission to finally put them down. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer.